Go down. Get somebody. Go down. Get somebody. Go down. Welcome to another Doggone Podcast here in the CEC studios. I'm your host, Mike the Mad Dog, and our sponsor for this episode is the Georgia Renovations Group. And my guest for this episode is Mr. David Waters, the host of the Gators Breakdown podcast and sports writer and broadcaster. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Here in Jacksonville, so only a couple more days till I guess you're probably okay with calling it a cocktail party. So
that's exactly what I call it. Okay. I don't understand why. I'm never going to not call it anything else. Why did they insist on calling it something else? I have no idea.
It's the schools thing, and then being here in Jacksonville, there were a couple years where there were some unfortunate accidents with some deaths and all that. So the schools kind of wanted to separate themselves from the drinking aspect of the game. So, but
I'm sure not calling it a cocktail party will make people not do that at all.
Exactly. So
that'll
to what happened. I'm a sensitive person, but I mean, come on, we know what it is.
Well, let's go ahead and get started since we're talking about the cocktail party. You guys don't have a head coach right now, so what is the pulse of the Gator fans on how they feel about this game coming in?
It's kind of twofold. It's hope and it's unknown. So a lot of the fan base was ready to move on from Billy Napier, and a lot of that was because he refused to give up some offensive play calling. So the offense had become somewhat predictable. Not living up to its potential. So now you get rid of Billy Napier. And with that, since he was a play caller, you get a new play caller in. So Billy Gonzalez, the wide receiver coach, who was the wide receiver coach under Urban Meyer here at Florida, under Dan Mullen here at Florida, wide receiver coach under Billy Napier, well, he's elevated to the interim coach. And then Russ Callaway, the offensive coordinator, is going to stay in his role. But since Billy Napier was play caller, quarterback coach Ryan O'Hara is actually going to be the play caller. So we don't know what to expect. I mean, they've thrown out some breadcrumbs here and there to say, hey, we're going to rely more on DJ Lagway. We're going to rely more on these wide receivers that we really like. We're going to open up the offense, maybe spread it out a little bit. We have no idea what that's going to look like. It's going to be new for Florida. So there's an element of, like I said, some hope, but a lot of unknown just because we don't really know what it's going to look like.
Well, Florida certainly has the talent to win the ball game, and that's always a worry for the Georgia fans because we know you had the talent. It's just that somehow Napier didn't, he didn't explore it enough. And him calling the plays, I mean, you think that was his ultimate downfall, was the fact that he wouldn't relinquish play calling?
It definitely was. I think there would have been at least more of a leash for him if he had given it to somebody else and you were trying to figure your way out through it. But, there was a lot of hopes on this season. I mean, this was the season a lot of people circled because you had your hand-picked quarterback, and he was coming back for his second season. You had 4 or 5 offensive linemen returning. You had a running back stable with Jaden Ball and Jacoby Jackson, a lot of people like. A young wide receiver group, but a high-potential wide receiver group. And then so many guys returning on defense. This was the year a lot of people circled for Florida to finally make a move. And then it looks like the team regressed in a whole lot of ways. They're nowhere near as what they were at the end of last year, why people were picking Florida to do good. So, schedule comes into play, but when and look, this is not even just a Billy Napier thing. When you're the head coach at Florida and you're struggling this much in the year 4, it doesn't matter who you are. You're going to be ready to move on. You would have to prove something, and there was not a lot of equity for Billy Napier. He didn't win a whole lot in years 1, year 2. Finally, at the end of year 3, he did. But then so much expectations were put on year 4 that he failed to live up to it after another terrible start to a season. So there was just a lot of question marks. But a lot of people will go back to, hey, if you just would have hired a play caller, maybe you wouldn't be put in this situation to begin with, and we probably would have given you a little bit more of a leash. But his refusal to do so was definitely his ultimate downfall.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, Napier was so hot and cold. Like, there'd be some games that you would see him and he would be absolutely fantastic. There was one year that Tennessee looked good, but they came to the Swamp, and I thought for sure Tennessee was going to win that ball game, and Napier just dialed it up. I mean, this year against Texas, I thought they looked really good against Texas. I thought, okay, Napier's going to turn it around. It's more interesting to me when they're better when we're going to eventually play against Georgia, when they play against Georgia. That cocktail party is a big deal. I mean, to some Georgia fans, it's the ultimate rivalry. That's our rivalry game is Florida. And when they broke down the three schools, moving forward that we have to play every year, I knew without question that Florida was going to be one of them. I said, there's no way they're going to take Georgia away from Florida. That cocktail party is cemented forever. And it's always at the same time every year, 3:30. It's always a 3:30 kickoff. So, I mean, this is the problem that I have with this, because any team that has nothing to lose is very dangerous.
Yeah.
And Florida, at this point in the stage, with no coach, they've got nothing to lose. And it makes them very dangerous coming in that cocktail party. They've had a week off to prepare. Kirby did too, but I really think that I'm worried a little bit more than I probably should be. And I think I wouldn't have been worried as much unless Napier was there, because, we knew what we were dealing with. It was the devil, You dealt with that, and it was fine. We were like, okay, Billy Napier, Kirby's got a handle on him. We don't know what's going to happen here. And Kirby doesn't either. How do they know exactly what to plan for if they don't know what's coming? So that's the advantage that Florida has. Maybe the advantage of, Georgia has is that, everything's still new, for everybody with Florida. This is going to be a big deal. This is going to be a big stage. I mean, the game down in Jacksonville is a big deal. And this is the last time they're going to play in Jacksonville for a while, right?
Yeah. So they will move to Atlanta next year, and then Tampa as Jacksonville renovates their stadium, and then it'll be back in Jacksonville after that. So 2 years away, and then back in Jacksonville. And you and I were talking a little bit beforehand, is a lot of people would have loved a home and home at least 2 year stint instead of going to Atlanta, instead of going to Tampa. Which, don't get me wrong, these schools are going to be making a change it up every now and then to not get that, to not stay in a neutral site. It would have been nice to have the home and home that, Florida and Georgia experienced in the 90s, the last time this stadium was getting renovated. And, to see Georgia come and play in the Swamp, to see Florida go between the hedges. And, it would be something nice to see again. And look, I'm all for the game staying in Jacksonville and not moving. But if it ever had to, keep Jacksonville in the rotation along with the home and home. Like, go Jacksonville, Athens, Jacksonville, Gainesville, and just let that be your 4 year rotation.
I know the city of Jacksonville wants it to stay there, and then they make way too much money off this game.
Oh, for sure. It's been stuck here. And you mentioned it earlier too. Games always at 3:30. And look, I remember the last time it was a night game. It was in 2002. It was, Georgia's only loss that year. But game day was here that morning, and then you had a 7:45 kickoff, and it was a night game. It was just an all-day affair. But, with some things that happened after games, and like we talked about earlier about the whole cocktail part of it and stuff, they wanted to get away from that as much as they could. So I don't think this game, at least from the Jacksonville perspective as well, they don't want it at night, just because, look, I've been there. It is a cocktail party. There's a lot that goes on. You throw in another 3-4 hours of, drinking and partying, it does probably get a little bit out of hand. But 3:30 is the perfect kickoff for the game.
I like 3:30 kickoff all the time too. I think they're great. But I've never been down there. I know you have, because you're there now. I have a friend of mine who went, and he said the amazing thing is, no matter what tent you go to, whether they're full of Florida or Georgia fans, when you go down there, people are passing out food. They're giving you something to drink. Everybody's having a good time. He said everybody outside is just so nice. He says it's not the rivalry you think until that ball kicks off. And then everybody goes to their respective corners, and everybody's, ready to play. But he said it's such a cool atmosphere, and he said it is unreal that just how much the fans are sitting out there tailgating, everything. He said most of them don't even go in. They stay outside the stadium. They don't want to go in. They set up TVs outside, the campers or back of their trucks. They're ready to go. And he said that cocktail party is rolling. And he's right. He said the same thing. He said 3:30, it has to be at that time, because it needs to be over with and everybody needs to get out.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a unique perspective for me. I'm a big Gator fan, and I grew up in South Georgia. So I was born in Jacksonville, but raised in South Georgia since I was 3 years old. So I grew up in it. I grew up in Florida, Georgia. I grew up with all my best friends being Georgia fans. So the game itself holds a special place for me. It is my quote unquote Super Bowl, because I have friends who come into town and we hang out. And as you said, I've been years where we get a whole group of people, and just so we can enjoy the game together, we sit outside the stadium and watch the game instead of going in. I go in the game more now, but we have a big, gigantic lot behind RV City, and we have a big RV that pulls in. We have a orange and blue painted school bus that has a stage on top of it that pulls right beside it, and directly across from us is an RV full of Georgia fans. And we go back and forth in a respectful manner. We're, like you said, we're handing each other drinks. They come do games with us. I mean, it is, as you said, before the game, just a good time. And then it does change once you walk in that stadium.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's talk about what they're going to do after that game, because eventually, or what they're doing right now probably, Florida is looking for a new head coach. Now, Are they pushing all the chips in the center of the table on Lane Kiffin? I mean, is that their guy and they're not even looking anywhere else? But what's their backup plan if they don't get Kiffin?
No, obviously, they're going to look somewhere else, but it's all in on Kiffin until he tells you no, and or yes or no, and then you got to have a backup plan if he tells you no. There are a lot of connections. Kiffin with his dad, Monty Kiffin, coaching at Tampa, grew up in the state of Florida. His reconciled marriage with his wife Layla, her dad was a quarterback for the University of Florida, and is a legend there. So there's a lot of connections with Lane Kiffin in Florida, but he's got a good thing going at Ole Miss. They're in the playoff race, so Tommy may come into it all as well. LSU is open. He's going to be at the top of their list as well. So there's a lot of angles to Florida trying to get Lane Kiffin in. So obviously, if it's not him, then you do have to go down the list a bit. There's some rumors now as we sit here on this Wednesday, James Franklin of Virginia Tech might be close to a deal. So that marks one of your candidates off, after he gets fired from Penn State. Then you got Jeff Brom from Louisville, Brent Key at Georgia Tech. Let's see, maybe a wild card, Lincoln Riley at USC if he's not happy there.
I heard Eli Drinkowitz too.
Eli Drinkowitz, Jed Fish at Washington. I mean, that's probably I would say if it's not Lane, your next head coach for Florida probably comes from that group of names there. But, Florida's going to do everything they can to get Lane Kiffin. And the fan base is completely behind it. I mean, it's going to be a dagger for a lot of Gator Nation if Lane Kiffin decides not to pick Florida. So are there other good coaches out there? For sure. We can't sit here and be naive enough to think Lane Kiffin's the only good coach out there. But when you think of success, recent success, when you think of fit, how he kind of just fits on that sideline at Florida. He, admired Steve Spurrier since he was growing up as well. So he's kind of got that Florida moxie in a way, and it seems like a great fit. And Gator Nation's taking it that way. And if it's not him, there's going to be a lot of disappointed fans.
Well, I mean, Lane Kiffin seems like the prettiest girl at the school, and everybody wants to take him to the prom. I mean, every time there's a coach opening, it's he's the first name that's ever mentioned. Like, I don't know. I mean, no, don't get me wrong. I love Lane. I think he's got a great personality. I like him as a coach. I want him to succeed. I do. And there's no reason for me to. I don't necessarily want him to succeed when he's playing Georgia at Florida. Right. But what I'm saying is that I think he's great. But, you got that LSU job opening up too. Now, those are in the SEC, those are the two big schools. Right now that's open. You got LSU and you got Florida. Now, which one, and I know you're biased, but which one, I mean, to me, it's a little bit more and very little bit more because both of them have the advantages of in-state talent. Both of them have, people who are going to stay at home, want to play for a national championship. You can win a national championship at either school. It's been done, several times over. But LSU, I mean, I don't know what it is about that place or what. Those kids don't play for any coach. They play for a school, and it's hard. You have to take napalm to get those kids out of that state. They will not leave that state. It's hard to get an LSU kid, a Louisiana kid out of that state and not go to LSU. So, with that and his transfer portal thing, I mean, LSU seems enticing too. So, had that not happened, I would say, okay, yeah, he could take the Florida job, but now that LSU's open, I have no idea what he's going to do.
I don't either. I think you have a right to feel good about it if you're a Florida fan, but I'm sure there's an LSU fan that feels just as good as you do, and there's an Ole Miss fan that feels just as good as you do for him staying there and shunning both of them. So, look, I would not blame Lane Kiffin one bit for staying at Ole Miss. I mean, he's built something special there. I do think when you compare all three, Ole Miss has raised the floor for sure. And the floor can be the same at all three. I still think the ceilings are higher at LSU and Florida. You're not going to convince me otherwise.
No.
That you can, I think you can still win more and win more consistently at those schools. Maybe some more time passes by and he builds that at Ole Miss. I still don't think it's quite there yet. They have to live in the transfer portal so much to be competitive. They have figured it out to a point, but we've seen other schools who have to dip into that transfer portal. It can hurt you as well, but they have seemed to figure it out better than most. So we'll see how sustainable that is. But I still think, and then you start looking at Florida and LSU and maybe which one's better. It depends on what side of the pillow you wake up on that day or what side of the bed you want to get out there. Florida's
true.
better in some ways. LSU's better in some ways. You mentioned the talent part of it, and I do agree with you there. Like, if both schools are at their best and Florida can get who they want out of Florida, there's no difference whatsoever.
No, none.
But when both schools are struggling, LSU's still going to get their homegrown talent. Florida still has to fend off Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State.
Yeah,
and
that's
Florida
right.
State and Miami for their talent.
Yeah, I can only tell you. I mean, Kirby sends guys down there to Florida all the time, and for some reason, maybe you can explain this to me. Why is it that when you want a kid with speed, you go to Florida? Because I don't know what it is in the water down there, but they have the fastest talent down there. If you want wide receivers, corners, running back, somebody who's lightning quick, it's always you go to the state of Florida to get them. What is it about the state of Florida that has them so fast?
We ask ourselves that question too, and I have no idea why it's that way. Especially when you go further south of Florida, there's a lot of speed down there in South Florida and Miami,
Yes.
and in that area, Fort Lauderdale, in that area. It goes to the point when we're talking about coaching at Florida. That's what Florida has to recruit to. Don't come to Florida and try to turn Florida into Georgia. Don't come to Florida and try to turn Florida into Alabama. Florida needs to be Florida. That's what Steve Spurrier did. That's what Urban Meyer did. We're going to go get speed, and we're going to use our speed. But no, you went and got Will Muschamp and Jim McElwain and Billy Napier. They wanted to smash mouth football, play in a phone booth, and for whatever reason, try to make Florida, Alabama, or Georgia. You can't do that here. You have to recruit to what the state is known for, and that is speed, speed, speed. And hopefully the new coach of Florida gets that.
Well, if you stay true to who you are, I don't see how you could fail. And I understand exactly what you're saying. You need a coach that's going to come in there, understand what it is, the talent that he has around it, and get the most out of it. That's exactly what he's going to have to do. And, Lane could do that. You're right. I can understand why everybody wants Lane. I mean, Lane seems like he could adapt to that very quickly. In-state of talent, all the speed. I mean, Lane's and do you think they're going to go offense or defensive coach?
The preference is offense. Now, all the names I pretty much listed were offensive guys. If you miss on that group, then maybe you have to go defense. But the true defensive coordinators out there that are the head coaches right now, I mean, I don't know if they're really attainable. Marcus Freeman's the first one that comes up. I don't think he's leaving Notre Dame.
No.
And then Dan Lanning's not leaving Oregon. So your two best head coaches that have a defensive background, they're not attainable. Kirby Smart's not attainable. I mean, that's another angle to all this. People, when you bring up Lane Kiffin or you bring up Eli Drinkowitz, or it's like, oh, what have they done? What has anybody else done besides Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, and Dabo Sweeney? You don't want Dabo. So
No.
So you're whoever this next hire is going to be. There is a little bit of projection here because there's only 3 coaches in college football that have won a national championship right now. So you're not getting any of those guys.
Yeah, it's a different thing. I've noticed this too. It used to be like there were always these key names. Everybody you always focused in on, like, oh, if we can get this guy. But that's not out there anymore. It's almost like you'd be shocking to get an up and comer or somebody who's just as good. You go, they try. Of course, they did try it with Napier. They got him out of the Sun Belt, but then everybody used to call him Sun Belt Billy. That was a bad nickname around here. Everybody was like, hey, we can beat Sunbelt Billy. Everybody used to say that all the time around here. Well, I'm not worried about Florida now, but if they get Lane, we better be a little bit more concerned about the cocktail party because it's going to be on then. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be more exciting. But like I said, if they don't, they've got to have that backup guy. There's no way that they're all in on Lane to think this is going to happen because I talked to several Ole Miss people who cover Ole Miss, and a few of them have the feeling that he wants to stay.
Yeah.
And it comes to, and I've said this time and time again, when it comes to money, how big does your yacht need to be? Let's be honest. How really big does it need to be? How much more money do you need? When you make a certain amount, everybody's like, we'll give you $3 million more. Oh, okay, I'm not starving now, man. I'm fine. Yep. And if you got a fan base and if you've got, emotional ties to it and your family's all there, then $3 more million a year is not going to matter, especially when you're making, 6 figures anyway. Yeah. Like it doesn't matter. That's my favorite thing. How big does your yacht need to be? Let's be honest.
And that's the thing for Lane, that at least at Florida, there are some other pools because his wife's side of the family.
Yes.
And their background at Florida. So, if it's still a family affair that's going to help make this decision, at least there is that pool on the Lane Kiffin and his I think they're married again. I'm not sure, but that was his first wife.
Yeah,
they separated.
Yeah, they're back together. I think they're back together.
Yeah. So, but there is a background there for the Florida side.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can see all that, but I mean, Lane, they did offer him, I think, what's it, $13.5 a year?
That's the reported number. It's going to be close to that. Now, that was before LSU came open. So does it drive up even more because there's more competition?
Okay, well, let's talk about this now. What if Ole Miss offers him the same? What if Ole Miss matches the offer and just says, okay, we'll give you that amount, stay here? I mean, why pack up then? I don't think anybody's going to. I mean, we were talking, I think it was on the Bill King show. You and I listened to that a lot. He's talking about the days of coach making $15 million a year is coming. Now, how soon that is, I don't know, because right now they're offering $13.5. They're not too far away from it now, which I think is absurd. To me, the best job on the planet is a fired football coach for college. We'll pay you $12 million to go away. Okay, I'll be in the Bahamas for a month, man. I'll see you later. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
I've never seen anything. The best job you could have, hire me. I'll go down into Florida and you buy me out in a couple of years. I don't care. Like, what? I'll just retire on Florida's money.
I'll be done.
It's insane. I never do understand that. Listen, let's talk about what's coming up next week here. Besides the Florida game, you got Penn State and Ohio. Now, Penn State again, no coach. I mean, this is going to be happening a lot. I mean, do you think they're going to have any fire against that Ohio State defense?
No. I mean, they fired James Franklin already. They didn't have any fire against UCLA. They didn't have any fire against Northwestern. Maybe because it's Ohio State, but no. I don't. I don't see it there.
No, I don't see it there either. I mean, I think Ohio State. I mean, until they're beaten, I'm not gonna say that they're gonna repeat.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're definitely making the playoffs. I don't see them not being in the playoffs and being pretty high up.
It's so crazy with them right now because they're the number one team in the country. Since their schedule hasn't been all that tough, besides the opener against Texas, and that was the first game of the season, you didn't know what to expect from either team. This has been probably the least talked about number one team I can remember in a long time because there's been no marquee game that you've circled yet. And this was supposed to be one until Penn State, the last month now, fired a head coach and lost some games. So even this one that was supposed to be big is not big now. So, and honestly, it just seems like, they got Indiana coming up. I believe. So that's going to be your top 5 matchup coming up pretty soon. So everybody's going to be circling that one and then Michigan. But I can't remember going through the first 2 months of the season and barely talking about the number one team.
I know the Michigan team's hyped because he hasn't seemed to beat them yet. I mean, I had some friends of mine who are Ohio State fans. They were at that game when they lost 13-10.
Yeah.
Good Lord. I didn't even call them because, I mean, I was like, I texted them and said, do you want to talk? No, we don't want to talk.
They knew.
No, they're very upset. I mean, like that to me is like the ultimate rivalry between Michigan and Ohio State. I mean, I know we talk about Georgia and Florida, but that rivalry, that's the only rivalry I know that had an HBO special about how much they cannot stand each other.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like from a fetus they're taught to hate the other team. Like they cannot stand them. But the big thing I want to talk about is Vandy at Texas. Now, Texas seemed to, I don't know. I can never tell about Texas right now. I can't tell about Arch Manning.
He may not even play.
Yeah, Florida. Yeah, that's true. Florida beat them. But now Vandy's looking hot. Vandy, it seems like, no offense to you, it seems like Vandy and Florida switch places.
Yeah.
Because now nobody wants to. I'm so happy Vandy ain't on our schedule right now. Because I'm like, nope, I don't want any part of Vandy until they, because Clark Lee's got to be a name on somebody's list. With what he's done at Vandy, he has. I mean, even though he went there, he's going to have to make people. They're going to have to make him say no. They're going to be approaching him. They're going to be throwing dollar signs at him too. I mean, when you do what you do at a school like Vandy and you're actually successful, you beat Alabama last year, you had them close this year, and now you're dominating everybody else. I mean, yeah, somebody's going to be offering you a lot of money to leave that school. Now, whether he stays or not, I mean, again, that's the thing about Vandy. I don't know how much his contract is.
Yeah,
because it's a private school, so I have no idea. I mean, I would assume it's somewhere around.
A whole lot.
No, but I would assume it's around, 7 or 8? It would have to be, wouldn't it?
I don't know. I don't remember if it's been restructured or not since he's been there, if they did anything after last year, but I have a hard time thinking it might be that high because that would have put you at Billy Napier, Florida level. And I don't think he would have been getting paid that much unless they did something last year. And I can't remember, because that was one good year. That was his first good year.
Yeah.
So they may have restructured something last year, and I don't remember. But that's the ultimate question about him. He is a defensive coach. And are you taking? I mean, don't get me wrong. Vanderbilt's defense is good too, so he's definitely made a difference on that side of the ball.
Yes.
But with guys like him, guys like Brent Key at Georgia Tech, with Haynes King, it's like how much of their success is tied to one quarterback? The sample size hasn't been big enough. What happens when Diego Pavia leaves?
Yeah.
What happens when Brent Key doesn't have Haynes King out there at quarterback? So as Florida, LSU, or any of these other schools are looking for these type of coaches, it's like you really got to do some research and you really or projecting a little bit. How much is it tied to these quarterbacks?
That's true. Speaking of quarterbacks, I gotta tell you, the Oklahoma-Tennessee game, I mean, with the quarterback, Oklahoma material with his hand, if he's going to come back 100%, I don't know. That's the only game. They're both 6-2. That's the only game that I think is literally just toss a coin. I have no idea who's going to win that game. The only advantage that Tennessee has is that it's at Rocky Top. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only advantage I see that they're going to have is that it's there. And that stadium, I don't know if you've ever been there, is loud. Oh, yeah. I have been there. And you feel the earth shake when those people are excited. And it is incredibly hard. I'm surprised. I was so proud of Georgia during that game because they didn't false start the whole time, and that stadium was insane.
Yeah.
They took them to overtime. Start. Yeah, it was, and didn't false start once. That's insane, especially with intensity. But that game, I mean, you just flip a coin. I have no idea. I have no idea who's going to win that game.
I don't either. Because you probably got strength on strength with, Oklahoma's offense still has some room to grow, but was pretty good before Mateer got hurt. So how much of it is the injury? Tennessee's offense leaves a lot to be desired. But then on the other side, you got a good Tennessee offense and an Oklahoma defense that's coming off, one of their poor performances against Ole Miss last week. But but minus that game has been pretty good this season. So I think you got a Tennessee offensive strength against an Oklahoma defense that now has to lick their wounds a little bit and bounce back versus, a Tennessee defense, I think, that can be scored on. How far along is Mateer in that injury, and do they bounce back as well from, that was probably Ole Miss's best defensive performance last week against Oklahoma's offense. So yeah. Oklahoma's coming in a little bit wounded on each side, probably with some questions they didn't think they'd have coming into this game.
Yeah, and, with Tennessee's coming off a high of absolutely annihilating Kentucky the way they did, which, by the way, I'm surprised that Stoops still has a job. Like, of all the coaches they let go, Stoops is still hanging around. Yeah.
That buyout's mighty high.
Well, I'm just saying, though, and Stoops surprises me. Like, he just keeps hanging around and hanging around every year. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I think Stoops is great. I like Stoops. You see certain things about coaches. You like him as a person. But at the same time, you're like, my God, how does he still have a job, though? Yeah, with all these other people cutting coaches loose, he's still hanging around.
This new age of NIL and transfer portal has not been good for Kentucky. They had a good system, get them in, develop them. But ever since guys could leave and NIL became a factor, Tennessee football or Kentucky football, certainly that's one program that's taken a step back in this new age of college football.
You think he's just stubborn, or he doesn't know how to work the portal, or is he just not wanting to dive into it too much?
I think stubborn, don't know how to don't know how to adapt because, like I said, I think they were pretty good at doing what they were doing, just getting guys in and develop them, and then it would pay off 3-4 years down the road. But also, I mean, we can't forget it was pretty much known he was going to be the Texas A&M head coach till Texas A&M fans came out and said, no, he's not going to be our head coach. So there's probably some trust and all that going on in that building. Saying, hey, obviously you wanted to be somewhere else and it didn't work out. So you're still here at Kentucky. They just got a ridiculous contract. I think that's what keeps him there more than anything.
Well, speaking of Texas A&M, I mean, they're like, who would have thought they would have been the team they are right now? I mean, and you were talking about nobody's talking about Ohio State. Nobody in the SEC is really bringing up Texas A&M, and I'm like, have you seen them play?
Yeah.
Like I watched them play, and I know LSU was bad, but I mean, I watched them make catches that were. I mean, I thought he dislocated his shoulder to make one catch. Like I was like, how are they doing this? And they have receivers that do things like that, quarterbacks moving. It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
And if I was a Texas A&M fan, now Texas is not really as hot as they said they were, I'd have been so freaking happy. But nobody's bringing it up much. But I think they will during the SEC championship game because I guarantee you, I think they're going.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, their schedule now sets up pretty well for them making it to Atlanta. Look, that's all firsthand against Florida. Florida played them okay when it was all said and done, but. Marcel Reed's certainly taking steps at quarterback. They got two really good receivers, as you mentioned, and of course under Elko, they're going to have a good defense. So that team, it does seem like they're just getting better as the year goes on as well.
That's true. Well, listen, it's been a lot of fun having you on here. I appreciate your time. I want to thank Georgia Renovations Group for sponsoring this episode. I want to thank you, Mr. David Waters, for coming on here. And feel free, I might invite you on again, especially if, things don't go well at the cocktail party. But I wish I could wish you luck on that, but I really can't do that. I can't bring myself to do it. I apologize. It's no problem. Well, I appreciate your time, and thank you, everybody, for watching another episode of Another Doggone Podcast. And doggone it, I'm out.